But what about Cal 10?
I've got 3 o'clock. I think we'll call our meeting to order.
Farron. Present. Hannon. Euchman. Present. Bauer. Chaplin. Here. Cho. Dial.
Here.
Quorum is present.
Thank you. First item on our agenda is the approval of our agenda for today. I'll seek a motion and second.
So moved.
Second?
Any discussion on our agenda? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. All opposed? That motion carries. Our second item is a public hearing on the budget and appropriation ordinance for fiscal year 2018. And the primary purpose of this hearing is to receive input from the public on the proposed budget and appropriation ordinance for the Champaign-Urbana Mass Transit District for the period from July 1st, 2017 to June 30th, 2018. Beginning on May 24th, 2017, copies of this tentative budget were made available for public inspection on the district's website, www.cumtd.com, and at the Champaign-Urbana Mass Transit District Administrative Offices located at 1101 East University Avenue in Urbana, Illinois, between the hours of 8 a.m. and 5 p.m. A notice of this public hearing appeared in the News Gazette on May 24th, and the certificate of publication I have in my hand is available for inspection. At this time, I'd ask for any comments on this item, the budget and appropriation ordinance, from the public. Seeing none, I'll ask for a motion to close this hearing.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to close this hearing. Any other comment from the board? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? This hearing is closed. Our second public hearing is on the Consolidated Vehicle Procurement Program. Let me find that thing. And the primary purpose of this hearing is to receive input from the public on a project for which financial assistance is being sought from the Illinois Department of Transportation. The project consists of replacement of 5 medium-duty paratransit vans for ADA services and 1 street supervisor minivan. The notice of public hearing appeared in the News Gazette on June 11th, 2017, and the certificate of publication I have here in my hand is available for inspection. I ask for comments, or the board asks for comments from the public on this item. Seeing none, I'll ask for a motion and second to declare this hearing closed. It's been moved and seconded to close this public hearing. Any other board action on this? Seeing no comment, all in favor say aye. Aye. Motion carries. The hearing is closed. All right, our next item is audience participation. Audience can participate, discuss with the board any subject. We do have a 5-minute limit. This is your only opportunity for public input at our meeting today. Any comment from the public? Please come to the microphone. Please state your name and address for the board.
I don't have to state my address, Patsy Petrie,
Okay.
Champaign, Illinois. The reason for coming before you is some information that was shared with the county board at the Environmental Land Use Committee meeting last week. And it is an aggregated statistic for 1 year that 296 acres of rural land has been subsumed into the ETJ. My concern should be that's prime farmland, and that means economics out of farming. But that's not the reason I've come before you. It's an indicator of sprawl. And periodically I come before the MTD, pointing this out and suggesting very strongly that as a board, that from my perspective as a taxpayer, that you really do have an obligation to go before the 2 municipalities in Savoy and St. Joe and relate to them concerns about sprawl and growth. We have plenty of space within the present boundaries for development. Champaign has stated publicly that they have plenty of space for development for the next 20 years. And any sprawl costs the taxpayers money, it costs MTD money, it costs infrastructure money. I could go on and on and on, and you know all of that. So again, I'm before you, hoping that indeed you all will agree that it's important to go before City of Champaign and City of Urbana and urge them to start containing this sprawl and the spread of the ETJ. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments. Additional public comments.
Good afternoon. My name is Mike Hetherington. I live 1207 English Oak. Just a quick question. I'm not sure how this works. Is this right now our only time to speak about the annex of certain territory? Okay. I would just like to say as a taxpayer that, and a homeowner and a disabled veteran, that I'm very concerned that my taxes are going to go up $600 a year, give or take, depending on how you guys decide to assess my property this year, which is always fun, for a service that I will not use once in my entire life. And I'm talking right now about the annexation for the MTD district, for the Trails to Abbey Fields, the Jacobs Landing area, the intersection of Kirby and Rising. And I'm not sure if it's a done deal or not, and I'm not some, angry lunatic, but I am disappointed that this is just more government run amok, in my opinion, okay? I'm disappointed that more people couldn't be here. Who knew that 3 o'clock on a, whatever day this is, people couldn't be here, but I just would like you to vote no or to delay the taxes as long as you can. My kids need braces. I got tuition to pay for school, and I'm never, ever going to use this. And a lot of the people in my community who I've talked to are never going to use this service, and I'm not entirely sure how it's our responsibility to provide taxes for transportation that we're never going to use, ever. And with that, I'd just like to say thank you for listening to my comments.
Thank you. Any additional public comments?
Hi, my name's Spencer Anderson. I'm at 1215 English Oak. I also want to talk about the annexation of Southwest Champaign for the purpose of raising revenue for the MTD. I'd like to ask a couple questions, if that's okay. I'd just like to know what the plans are for the increase in revenue that MTD is going to receive after the annexation. Like, what's the primary purpose for the annexation? I went to the website and it wasn't very clear. There was just a lot of rhetoric about why it's great that we support the community, but I'd like to know what the exact plans are, if that's possible.
Carl, would you like to take that for me?
Well, we don't have exact plans yet. We're in the middle. Actually, we're not even in the middle. We're in the very beginning, early stages of the planning process. So I don't have any concrete plans that I could give you at this stage.
Okay. Well, based on that, I don't think that it's appropriate to request additional funding without a knowledge of a need of that funding or an idea of where that funding will end up going in the end. I feel like there are similar concerns that should be raised about whether the Southwest Champaign area would even use public transportation. However, I do understand that sometimes taxes are raised for things other than what we might possibly use personally. But if there's no apparent need of the additional funding, there's no apparent use going forward that people even know what they're going to use it for, then I would strongly request that it be delayed until there's an actual plan set forth in terms of what you'll use the funds for.
Yeah, it might be worth noting that generally the funds raised from new property that comes into the district is not earmarked and used for a special purpose. It becomes a part of the tax base that is then subject to the levy. So it's actually not, the levy might be greater than or less than for everybody, but the dollars specifically generated by this tract lose their identity because they become a part of the tax proceeds that are a part of the budget.
I don't see fund accounting working really that way. I see it as they decide what exactly they can raise, and then they decide exactly how that's going to be dispersed. To me, it looks like the focus, instead of looking at how to save money, it's more about how do we spend the money that's received once it's approved. And so I at least think that there ought to be some sort of vague plan. I heard that in the last meeting before this that I wasn't able to make, that the MTD hadn't even gone out to the neighborhoods and assessed whether buses could even enter our neighborhoods given the small size of our roundabouts. So those kind of, I would think, preliminary plans would need to be done before you assess whether we should be paying an additional $400 or $500 a year in property taxes. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Any other public comment on any issue? Seeing none. Item 7 is approval of minutes. We'll first act on the board minutes from the March 28th closed session. They were distributed prior to our meeting. Has everybody had a chance to look at those? Matt, did you get a chance to look at those? Thank you. I'll ask for a motion to approve those minutes as submitted.
I so move.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the minutes from the closed session of March 28th. Any other further discussion on that? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. All opposed. Motion carries. Our next item is the board meeting minutes from March 31st for the open session. They're in your handout, pages 1 through 5. Any questions on those minutes or corrections? I'll seek a motion to approve. It's been moved and seconded to approve the meeting minutes from May 31st for the open session. All in favor say aye. All opposed. Motion carries. The next item is our board meeting minutes from May 31st, our closed session, which were distributed prior to the meeting. Any questions on those minutes? Seeing none, all in favor, or I'm sorry, ask for a motion, please. It's been moved and seconded. All in favor of approving the closed session minutes from May 31st? Meeting minutes approved. And the last minutes we have are from the annexation meeting, the public hearing of June 12th, 2017, that are in your handout, pages 6 through 7. Need a motion to accept those minutes.
I so move.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion on the annexation hearing, public minutes, meeting minutes? Seeing none, I'll ask for a vote. All in favor, say aye. Motion carries. Next item on our agenda is communications. Any communications to the board that anyone would like to share? Carl? All right, moving on to item 9, the reports. We'll start with the managing director's report.
Okay, these statistics, are for June of 2017. No, they're for May of 2017. So the May ridership was 742,253, which is 3.71% below May of 2016. And the year-to-date ridership at the end of May was 11,674,826, or 5.23% below the same point in FY 2016. The operating revenue was $703,810, or 4.8% below May of 2016, and the operating revenue was $8,405,379, or 1.5% above FY 2016. The monthly expenses were $2,727,844, or 1.6% above May of 2016, and the year-to-date expenses were $30,032,431, or 2.3% above FY 2016. And finally, the year-to-date operating revenues are $484,587 above budget, and the operating expenses are $3,738,794 under budget. So I'm sure everybody is aware that Springfield is in a major kerfuffle right now, and so I'm a little hesitant to try to give you an update because it changes moment by moment. So I guess I would just say that as an update, things are changing moment by moment, and we are trying to stay in tune as best we can. And I will be in Springfield tomorrow, meeting with several legislators and touching base with them. So perhaps after tomorrow, I might have somewhat more of an update, but you know, I'm not going to be able to talk to everybody, and so even that it will only have a limited meaning to it. So it just is a really, really strange and crazy time in Springfield right now. Our funding is caught up in everybody else's funding. As I told you via email, that MCOR is in jeopardy, and it looks very likely that at the end of this month, at the end of this week, MCOR will be shut down and construction will stop. Without a stopgap budget, we have been instructed by IDOT to end all construction. That's particularly frustrating because there are no state funds involved with this project, but the federal funds are funneled through IDOT, and so hence the shutdown. So that is galling, but you know, we're one of many across the state that are in the same condition. So we're standing by and waiting to see what will happen with that. Green Street in the Champaign portion that is under construction, if the work stoppage does in fact occur, then they will be able to open up Green Street to traffic. It will be difficult and messy and ugly, but traffic will be able to flow through there. Green Street in Urbana, east of Wright, will not be able to be opened. That the street is gone there. It is a dirt pile right now, essentially, and so there will be no through traffic there with construction being pulled off. So that will continue to be closed and continue to be a headache and hassle for everybody. So stay tuned, and we'll let you know what happens with that. That's a fair amount of bad news right there. I will say we did get a little bit of silver lining good news. Just this afternoon, before I came to this meeting, we got notification from the state, unbelievably, but very welcome. They are making a third quarter payment. It was released today to us, so we'll be, in a day or two, we'll get our payment of just a hair over $10 million for our third quarter reimbursement from the state. So that's helpful. And then beyond that, I will answer any questions through this report on to page 45.
Carl, we've had an ongoing dialogue. I think Matt brought up this point last time too, relative to ridership decline, and of course this month we also had a spike in, or an upward trend in expenses. Looking back at it seemed like our ridership particularly spiked in 14 and 15, and there's been a steady trend now well over a year. Still, we're just monitoring this. Any other thoughts, plans, particularly with the overlay of the precarious state budget commitment? Plan and ridership specifically.
Well, those are two pretty, so let me give you two answers to that question. One is just from a ridership monitoring perspective, and I'll keep saying this, so many of you have heard me say this already, and I'll keep saying it, that we certainly are monitoring ridership, but while we are in the midst of MCOR, I think it would be a dramatic mistake to try to respond to what we think might be ridership trends, because they might not in fact be a trend yet. And the impact of MCOR is very, very significant. The reroutes are dramatic and significant, and so we will and are seeing ridership dropping as a result of that, and we knew that going in that it would. And so that's part A of that part of the question. Part B is, we, as you pointed out, we're comparing it to the 2 record years of ridership that we've had. And so that was great that we had those record years, but my predecessor and I had been telling the board for years that that's not sustainable, that we would not be able to maintain a ridership level at that point. It would not be able to continue to grow unfettered. And so now we're being fettered, and that this is the result, partly. The other part of your question relative to funding is kind of a different answer, because that's something that could change in a moment's notice. And so we certainly have plans so that we can respond to that once we know what occurs or what will occur. And I absolutely anticipate that there will be some level of a cut that we will see as a result of the ongoing discussions and conversations that are occurring in Springfield right now. What form that will take and what degree it will be, there's just no way for me to say at this stage. So again, kind of like the ridership, it's a little difficult to respond to that, because you don't want to over-respond, because you can end up cutting your own feet off at the ankles. So you have to be able to respond to the real situation, and so we have to wait until we know what that is before we can actually respond to that. And we have the ability to do that. We have a scalable plan that we can roll back the level of service if we need to, relative to funding changes. So we're ready to do that, but I think it would be, in my opinion, it would be a mistake to move ahead and try to preemptively make those changes without having any idea what change in the funding would occur.
Any other board questions?
Thank you.
Margaret.
Will the buses be able to run on the portion of Green Street that will be opened in Champaign?
I can't answer that right now. I don't know if we will remain on reroute there or not. I'm looking back at our project manager for MCOR, Jane, so.
We haven't looked into that too much at this point. I think it will depend on how long we think this will last, and we might have a better idea of that next week. I don't think it's likely that they're using just one portion of the street for two-way traffic, and so to change our reroute and then go back to our reroute might just be more confusing and messier. And of course, we would have safety concerns, and we would only do that if it were safe. So I think I would imagine the only way we would do that is if we were sure that this was a very long-term thing, and if we were able to do so safely. So I guess the answer is I don't know.
Anything else for Carl? Matt?
I guess in terms of ridership, The 5-year average is like, as a whole, is seeing a 5% decrease over the last 5 years. And I know that's as a whole for the district, but in light of kind of the annexation comments that we had and sprawl public input, I'm wondering, are you able to tell us if by expanding the district's boundary that actually impacts our ridership positively or negatively, if we were to say that, you know, if you could section off your ridership like that? Like, are we seeing significant increases from ridership on the outskirts of the district, or are we really seeing the majority of the decrease, one, because of MCOR, and a big percentage of our ridership is focused in like the downtown urban and university areas?
Well, certainly the majority of the ridership is focused in the core of the community. So the core of the community equals the core of our ridership. We generally don't see a dramatic change in ridership to the fringe area. Although, having said that, this fringe development is very different from what we have generally seen, in particular when we've gotten a request for service. This is a different type of generator with the Carle at the Fields being in Southwest Champaign versus just a housing development. So this has the typical housing development in it, but then it has 1,400 jobs also associated with it, and all the spin-off development that is ramping up already as a result of Carle at the Fields being out there. So I don't know that was your specific question, but I mentioned that because I think that this has the potential of being a very different kind of animal than what we typically have seen in the past. But some of it is we don't know until we know.
Don?
Carl, apropos these questions about the decline in ridership and the trend, I wonder if it would be helpful if we looked at the numbers before MCOR started. Say take a year of the trend, just extend it 5 years. Just make the assumption, assume this ridership declines by this percentage for the next 5 years. What will those numbers be? And when we were working with those numbers in the past, which we would have at some point in our history, what kind of service did we have? And just have a look at it, just so that if it were to continue, we would have some idea of where it would be in 5 years and how we operated when we had that level of service in the past. And that at least would be a foundation for thinking about adjustments that might need to be made. So I would suggest that as a possible way of just looking ahead a little bit and not being oblivious to the ridership numbers.
Right. No, you and I had talked about that before. I think it's an intriguing idea to see how that plays out. After we talked about it last time, I haven't done any number crunching on it yet, but I just kind of loosely thinking about it. The last time we had a major service level change was 2009, and so we've had the dramatic record increases every year since then. And so if we project for the next 5 years, if we were to assume, which I don't think would be a safe assumption, but if we were to assume just for an analysis that trend continued at that same rate for 5 years, we wouldn't be at a pre-service level change, and so the service level would be at this essentially at the same point. There would be some minor changes, tweaks here and there, but essentially the same.
Yeah, it might be useful just to do that and see
Agreed.
what those numbers are.
Yeah, no, I agree. Thank you.
Any additional board comment for Carle's managing director report?
Just
Jim?
one quick, too. I would be interested at some point, Do you have a thought, again, I was just surprised when I started looking at the numbers, the 14 and 15. Do you have any way of accounting? Whatever happened there, it'd be good to try to understand and perhaps push that agenda forward.
Whatever happened in terms of the increase?
Increases, yes.
Well, the increase had started in 2009 when we made the service changes. We made really significant changes to our system, our route system in 2009. And so immediately when we did that, each year after that, we saw record ridership each year. And so 14 and 15 were just a continuation of that we had seen since 2009, and then it plateaued in 2015. So I understand what you're asking, but I think the answer is in effect kind of combining your question and Don's question,
Right.
that it really went back to the service changes we instituted in
So
2009.
this movement upward,
Correct.
genesis of it was in 2009 as you made service changes. And like in most organisms, you hit a plateau, and that's the way it is.
Yeah, and just as an aside, at that same time, if you recall, 2009 followed 2008, where we went into a recession and gas prices were spiking, and there were a lot of other economic factors at play. And so there was, in terms of ridership only, just looking at that as a number, there was a perfect storm for record ridership occurring. We had significant improvements to the service right at the same time that we had reasons why people were looking for mobility options. We lowered our annual pass rate to help take stress off of those economic factors, which drew people in also. And so there was a lot going on at that time, and each year those bundled onto the previous year, and we saw an accumulative effect.
Thanks.
Go ahead, Bruce.
Carl, I'm wondering if it's worthwhile doing some sort of formal statistical analysis of all these variables. You got the gas price, you got decline in young, let's say 20s, car ownership, you've got changes you make inside the district, that we try to piece together what all these are really doing to ridership. It seems to me that it's ripe for that. You've got the data for it, going back to 2000 if you need to. Just a guess that this might be useful. We've talked about it before. We say, well, it could be this, it could be that.
Yep.
So why don't we try to really sort it out through a statistical analysis of the whole affair? Just a
We can
thought.
do that, and we can kind of combine what Don is talking about and what you're talking about, and we can put that into a single effort. And we've got a guy on staff who is great for that kind of thing. So yeah,
Somehow I
we can
knew
do
that.
Any- Anything else for Carl from the board? Seeing none, we'll move on to our next item, which will be our board committees, the first committee report from administration. Bruce? No report from administration. Facilities, Matt? No report. And service delivery, Margaret?
Yes. Jim and I met with Carle at the beginning of this month, and also present at the meeting was Jay Rank and Andrew Johnson. And we talked about three things. We had other things we wanted to talk about. We didn't have a lot of time. But the three we did talk about were the designated stops program, how that was moving along, and the experience of the planners and comments that the public had. Jay described the proposed route changes for the fall that will take effect in August. And they apparently were not very radical. I mean, we're not going to see gigantic, big changes. And then I was very interested in getting Andrew's feelings on the route analysis study that they had done in Bloomington while he was the head of the district there, because I thought perhaps there might be some things, some takeaways that would help us in doing ours. And it was very interesting. He described what they had done and sort of why they did it, his opinion of the effectiveness. And even though it was very interesting, I don't think it really has anything to help us in the study that we're going to do. It turned out to be a very different situation. So it was certainly interesting to hear what he had to say, but I don't think we can take anything away from that that's going to help us with our program. That's it.
Thank you, Margaret. Jim, you have anything you want to add to that report? No? Good. Jim? No? Okay. Our next item, we're going to move into action items, and that'll be, the first item will be Ordinance 2017-3. And Ordinance 2017-3 is an ordinance annexing certain property to the Champaign-Urbana Mass Transit District specific to the Carle Complex, Curtis Road, and I-57. I'd like a motion to approve this item and have further discussion.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. I'll ask for board discussion on this item specifically. Seeing none. Jim, go ahead.
Yeah, I think on this item, particularly, it's important to emphasize the fact that it was a request from Carle, the Carle organization, as opposed to the MTD or the city or anything like that.
Correct. This annexation was petitioned by the Carle Foundation to annex their properties near Curtis Road and I-57. If there's no other board comment, all in favor? Oh, we're going to have to do a roll call. Sorry, Beth.
That's okay. Farron?
Yes.
Hannan? Yes. Uchtman?
Yes.
Chaplin?
Yes.
Cho?
Abstain.
Dial?
Yes. Motion carries. Our next item for action items is Ordinance 2017-4. That's an ordinance annexing certain territory in southwest Champaign, and that begins on page 53. And I'll just go ahead and read this brief discussion, or this brief introduction here. This is an ordinance annexing certain territories within southwest Champaign. As the district received an annexation petition request from Carle Foundation to annex their properties by the Curtis Road interchange on 57 and began planning new service for the area, it became obvious that the remainder of the southwest Champaign that is eligible for annexation and service should be annexed as well. This will allow the district to plan comprehensively to improve service to the entire southwest Champaign region. Prior trustee action on this, the district from time to time follows through on annexations to comply with an annexation agreement that is in effect with the city of Champaign, the city of Urbana, and the village of Savoy. This is consistent with the board's policy number 1, regional roles and partnerships, and board policy number 2, service area planning. It's also in agreement with the annexation agreements and the goals and the objectives of the Regional Plan Commission, the Champaign-Urbana Urbanized Area Transportation Study, Long-Range Transportation Plan. I would ask motion to approve this item at this time.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any board discussion on this item? Jim?
Once again, I think it's important that sometimes it's perceived as just outreach by the MTD to pull in further taxing districts. but it's important to emphasize that there is an arrangement, and people who live in the city should be aware of that, and they might even want to chat with their representatives from the city council, because the areas in question are in the city, and there's a very defined agreement with the city to incorporate these things. And the city approved, right? So that would be the first thing, and I wish the two people that spoke had been at the annexation hearing too, because we had very good discussion, and I could understand and feel a lot of, I live in your general area myself. And the difficulty is that on various issues, we can't pick and choose whether it's the library, Unit 4, or whatever. You're part of a community, and as a result, often you will be asked to contribute to things that you may not use. Thank you.
Any other board comment on this issue? Margaret, your mic's on. You don't want to talk?
Oh.
It's okay. All right. No other board comment on this issue? It's been moved and seconded. We'll ask for a roll call.
Farren? Yes. Hannan? Yes. Uchtman? Yes. Chaplin? Yes. Cho? Dial?
Yes, motion carries. Our next item is Resolution 2017-5, contract for sale of 64 East Chester Street in Champaign. That's on page 80 of your packet. Carl, you want to give us a description of the action that's been taken there?
Excuse me, last Thursday, we held a public auction at Illinois Terminal, City View on the 4th floor, and there was a high bid of $450,000. And so we have preliminarily signed a agreement to sell the building to that bidder, and we just need your approval to move ahead with the closing that would be in August.
Thank you, Carl. At this time, I'll ask for a motion and second to spur further discussion on resolution number 2017-5. It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion on this item from the board? Seeing none, we'll ask for a roll call.
Farren? Yes. Hannan? Yes. Uchtman? Yes. Chaplin? Yes. Cho? Yes. Dial?
Yes, motion carries. Item is approved. Our next item on our agenda is the management system policy, page 101 of our handout. And there's our team right here in front of us. Ladies.
Okay, yes, we're on page 101. Amy and I are both up here as part of my job responsibilities. I serve as the management representative for our environmental management system, and as part of Amy's responsibilities, she serves as the management representative for our quality system. And this policy affects both of those systems. You have some background information in your packet. I'll talk a little bit, and we're happy to take questions. This policy covers both our quality and our environmental management system. We have an ISO 14001 certified environmental management system, as I think you all know. We have a quality management system that is working towards ISO 9001 certification. Both of those certifications are international standards, and we've been certified by the ISO 14001 standard for our environmental system for, I guess, 5 years now. And so you've seen an environmental policy before. It was first approved in 2011. We review it every 2 years as a team. We present it to senior management for approval, and then we present it to the board for approval, and that's every 2 years. So that cycle is up for the environmental management environmental policy, and we took the opportunity to integrate the policy so that it includes both quality and environmental. So the policy you're looking at is not drastically different than the policy that's currently in place, and that has been approved. We've added this quality customer service element to it, so that this policy serves the purpose of what we're calling an integrated management system, which covers both environmental and quality or customer service. Do you have any questions?
Any questions from the board? Bruce?
Yes, so there's a series of buttons here. It looks like 8 of them. Which ones are the quality of service? And which ones are the environmental? I see number 1 must be.
What are you
When you
looking
say
at, Bruce, for their purposes?
Oh,
Okay, so
it's your handout, right?
so typically we tried to incorporate customer service and quality and environmental into all of these bullet points. There are a few that are unique. Let's see, this first one, striving to continually improve customer satisfaction and environmental practices. That's one that applies to both. The second one, which talks about reliable, safe, secure, environmentally responsible service, I'd say that applies to both. I could go through these line by line. You probably don't want me to. I think it's safe to say they all apply to both. So both systems are really integrated into this entire policy.
You're not diluting the environmental interests of the district.
Absolutely not.
Any other board comment? Margaret?
Yes, the idea of integrating these into one, that's our idea. That's not the feds or the ISO people's idea. And they have no problem with our doing that.
That's correct. We have the option of keeping them as 2 separate systems or integrating them as one management system. The reason we chose to integrate them is because there is a lot of overlap. The overarching ideas are really the same, except one focuses on environmental and the other focuses on quality and customer service. So there's a lot of overlap in documentation, in training. We also want district employees to see this as one integrated system. And we think this will help with that.
I would just add the 2015 update to the standard. They changed the clause structures to match across standards. And when I say they, I mean the ISO body. And so what they want you to do is to merge systems. It's better for the public to understand. It's much better from an internal perspective. Trying to get somebody to separate environmental from quality is just not realistic. So it's endorsed from all sides.
So,
Go ahead, Bruce.
okay. I'd suggest that you're talking about a document in which things have changed, and it would be helpful if we had that original document to be able to compare in such cases.
Just along that line, could you just briefly summarize what will be different in the world of MTD if we adopt this policy as opposed to not adopting it today?
So adopting this policy allows us to continue with our environmental management system and that certification. This policy is a requirement to be certified. We will have an auditor on site in September, and they will be looking for this policy, and they will be looking for signatures on it, and they will want to hear about this conversation we're having. It also helps move forward our quality management system. While we don't have an auditor looking over that system yet, we will soon, and so it gets us ready for that. So what you're reading in this policy is no different than what we already do at MTD. We strive to continually improve. We follow all of our regulations, maintaining a safe and clean environment, all of that. So this is really that overarching idea that we hope you all will support us on and endorse.
And you look for opportunities to make the environment cleaner all the time, correct? Yes. Absolutely. Any further board comment on this item? Seeing none, I'll ask for a motion to approve this item. It's been moved and seconded to approve the management system policy. All of the board members in favor, please say aye. Aye. Motion carries. This item is approved. Last item in our action items is Ordinance 2017-2, the Budget and Appropriation Ordinance for fiscal year 2018, which we have reviewed previous meetings. It's listed in your last few pages of your document for today. Again, I'll ask for a motion to approve this item for further board discussion. It's been moved and seconded. The Ordinance 2017-2 is open for board discussion. Seeing none, we'll ask for a roll call.
Farren. Hannan. Uchtman. Chaplin. Cho. Dial.
Motion carries. Item is approved. That is the last item of business we have. For once, we don't have a closed session after our meeting. Our next meeting is scheduled to be right here in the Champaign City Council chambers, Wednesday, July 26th at 3 p.m. Vice Chair Chaplin will be chairing the meeting as I will be on vacation. Any other comment from the board at this time before we close?
Yes, Brad.
Jim?
I want to express the positiveness for this new meeting site. In our effort to be transparent, perhaps it's not always the most convenient time, but our meeting agenda and discussion is readily available on the public access TV and YouTube, and that is one of the main drivers, I think, in public sector things is transparency. So I would strongly affirm us continuing this venue.
Well said, and we thank the city of Champaign for allowing us that opportunity. Bruce?
I want to offer my condolences for you having to step down as a Board of Trustee member of the city of Champaign-Urbana. I'm trying to introduce a little humor here at the end of the... No, you've got a change in title here. Yeah. I thought you knew this. Good grief.
Oh, that's wonderful. I'm sure it's a salary decrease because there's hardly any salary involved here, so, yeah. Anything else for, before we adjourn our meeting? Seeing none, I'll ask for a motion to adjourn.
Second.
And we are adjourned. Thank you.